I know more about ISIS than the generals do, believe me.
I think under the leadership of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, the generals have been reduced to rubble.
Donald Trump had some harsh words for U.S. officers throughout his campaign, but he's now turning to lots of retired top brass for advice. What will that mean for U.S. foreign policy? I'm joined now by Admiral Mike Mullen, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the highest-ranking military officer in the U.S. and the president's principal military advisor. Good to see you, Admiral Mullen.
Martha, good to be with you.
And I want to start with that transition. You were there for the transition between President Bush and President Obama. What's that like?
Well, I think more than anything else, it is to look at the leaving campaign rhetoric behind and the reality of governing, which just hits you square in the face. And so focusing on finding out and focusing on the real issues that are facing the current administration, and then developing policies and strategies, if you will, to meet those challenges.
And what will Donald Trump inherit? We know the ISIS problem, but there's also North Korea, which he rightly so seems very concerned about. You were on this panel, right? This panel, the U.S. policy towards North Korea, and you wrote that North Korea poses a grave and expanding threat, and it is likely that the next president will face a North Korea that has gained the capability to strike the United States with nuclear weapons. That would make anybody nervous.
I think North Korea, that peninsula, is more likely than just about any place else in the world to potentially create an explosive outcome, particularly tied to the North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, the reality that he has nuclear weapons, and the inability so far to contain him in that regard. And that's a place where 4 of the 5 top economies in the world are centered. Stability there is critical, and at least North Korea historically has generated a surprise, if you will, for new leaders in this country.
And nothing stopped them.
No, and they're
not the Bush policy, not the Obama policy?
No, I think actually this has to go through Beijing, and Beijing has pushed back on that time after time. But if Beijing doesn't lead this, we're going to get to a point where he's going to be able to put a nuclear weapon on top of an intercontinental ballistic missile that could hit the United States, and that's unacceptable.
I want to say Donald Trump does not have real foreign policy experience, but he's turning to a lot of people who do. Does it matter that he doesn't really have much foreign policy experience?
Well,
other presidents haven't either.
And I think that is true. I'm encouraged actually by the fact that he is turning to people who have that experience, and that will really make a difference. The world is very unforgiving, and he has said, rightfully so, that he wants to focus here in the United States. But I've also found, certainly in my time, that the challenges that exist internationally, whether it's North Korea or China or Russia or the Middle East, will certainly be on his desk on day one.
As I mentioned in the beginning, he's really turning to an unprecedented number of general officers in his cabinet for advice. Jim Mattis's name is out there for defense secretary. How do you square that with what he said during the campaign about the generals?
Well, I'd put that in the category of rhetoric on one side and reality on the other. Jim Mattis is someone I've known extremely well. He's an incredibly capable individual, strategically focused, internationally focused. He has good relationships on the international side, and I think someone that who's born to serve and could make a difference, really significant difference as well.
And Mike Flynn was your intelligence officer, called the J2. You've said great things about him as an intelligence officer, different job as national security advisor.
Completely different. He was a terrific intelligence officer for me, but now he's at the hub of the national security apparatus, and he's got to be an honest broker. He's got to present all opinions. He and his deputy have to make the trains run on time in the White House. The number of issues are extraordinary, and he's got to be able to do that to give the president and the cabinet, but really the president, all the options in a way where the president can make the best decision for the security of the country.
Thanks very much for joining us, Admiral Mullen. We'd love to have you back to talk about this more. Great to see you.